Adams State College. Great stories begin here.
Are we ready? All right. I'm Dr. Leslie Alvarez, and it is my pleasure to introduce Anna Comar today. Anna is a senior level psychology major. She's graduating this spring, and she has a minor in sociology. And last year, a year ago, she was in my research methods class where she had a really interesting idea for a project. And this semester, in the fall, I encouraged her to consider presenting this project for Student Scholar Days, and luckily she agreed to. She might be sorry now that she did. But she had a really cool idea, and I'm excited today that she'll be able to share that with you. So.
Thank you. My name is Anna Comar, and what I wanted to look at is what type of student would be most likely to read a document before they put their signature on it. So it was my sophomore year when all the research method students would come in, give their experiment, and what I noticed is that a lot of students would just sign their name and hand it off. And that really interested me because I was wondering, well, what type of student's going to actually take the time to read, something as simple as a consent form before they sign it? So that's what really motivated me to do this project. And the measures I took were personality. So I looked at what personality type is most likely to read a consent form before signing it. And I used the Big Five model of personality. And what that says is that there are 5 types of personality. The first one being conscientious. These are your people that are very thorough, they're organized, they're very deliberate, and they strive for success and achievement. Second, extroversion and introversion. This is really a scale. People who score high on extroversion are the outgoing type, they're assertive. People who score low are the introverts, and they would be the opposite of extroverts. Third is neuroticism. This is a more negative personality type. It's characterized by people who experience a lot of anxiety, anger, guilt, and depression. And finally, the last 2, openness. These are your sensitive, imaginative artist type, very creative. And agreeableness, these are just your really pleasant people to be around. They're very kind, they're empathetic, and very considerate. Now, for this experiment, I felt that openness and agreeableness really wouldn't be factors that would indicate who would read a consent form. So I only used the first 3, being conscientiousness, extroversion, and neuroticism. Again, the aim of this study was to find what personality type of those 3 would be most likely to read the consent form before signing it. And my hypothesis would be that those individuals who scored high in conscientiousness, who were deliberate, organized, would be the most likely over any other personality type to read the consent form before signing it. Now, for my measure, I did use the Big Five personality inventory minus the items that measured openness and agreeableness. So that was how I modified that inventory. For the experiment, I first handed out a consent form, and this was a standardized consent form. It stated you needed to be 18 to participate. You didn't have to participate. This is how long it would take. And other things that are required in a consent form. My modification came in the lower half of the consent form, where I inserted a foreign word that had absolutely nothing to do with the consent form. And the idea behind that was if they read the consent form, they would be able to identify that foreign word. After the consent forms were handed out, I waited for them to be signed, and then I collected them and handed out the modified personality inventory. And here we have just a small excerpt of the consent form. This is to give you an idea of what it looked like. Now, this is the lower half of the consent form. And I wanted to show it for 2 reasons. 1, so you get an idea what was in it, and 2, to maybe if you glance at it, can you identify the foreign word? Or if you skim through, can you see where I've inserted it? Just a raise of hands, does anyone see it? Oh. All right. The questionnaire was 2 pages long. On the first page, it had basic demographic information asking sex, age, and what grade you're in. And then that was followed by 27 items that measured the 3 personality types. On the second page was the indicator of whether they read the consent form or not. And that is demonstrated right here, asking, was there anything strange or out of the ordinary that you found while reading the consent form? If you said yes, you can mark it, and I would ask what it was, just to make sure that they did identify the right alteration in the consent form. And for those that didn't find anything wrong, they could check no. Here's the participants broken down. Overall, I had 77 participants, which is a fairly small sample size. And as you can see, there's more females than males, which is what you're likely to find in an undergraduate psychology program, and it's more populated by females more than males. And then kind of as a second thought, about halfway through giving out these surveys, I also wondered if class level was an indicator. And what that means is that were individuals who took the survey in a 100 or 200 level class more or less likely to read the consent form than those in an upper division class, like 300 or 400 level classes. So what I did is just separate the surveys taken in lower division and separate the surveys taken in upper division. And as you can see, there was only 24 individuals who took it in 300, 400 level classes and 51 in lower level classes. And here are some demographics, just further broken down into class level. As you can see, most were freshmen, and it was fairly evenly distributed throughout the rest of the grades. All right, first, what you see here are mean scores of the 3 personality types. And what you can see is that students scored highest in extroversion and conscientiousness. And this is something you would expect, because traits of extroversion are outgoing, assertive, and conscientious are organized, strive for achievement. Those are traits that you would want to see in college students. And the scores are relatively the same. However, conscientiousness was a 32.73, where extroversion was a 32.69. All right, next what I needed to do is I needed to find out if participants were noticing the alteration at least chance, at least 50%. So I ran a chi-square test and found that out of the 77, only 12 didn't say, yes, I noticed something. 65 said, no, I didn't notice anything. And here's the interesting thing. Out of the 12 that said, yes, I did notice something out of the ordinary, only 7 identified the correct alteration. And it was interesting because what happened is I'd get, yes, the consent form was really long. Another one was, yes, I didn't know you had to be 18. And one I got was, they marked yes, but they didn't have anything to say about the consent form. It was about the actual survey. So they didn't read the question correctly. And I found a significance level of 0.000. So what that means is that people notice the alteration at significantly less than chance. All right. When it came to actually analyzing the hypothesis, I ran a linear regression dictated here by beta. And what it says is that the best predictor of who would notice the alteration or say yes were individuals who tested high in conscientiousness. And what this indicates is that they were most likely, conscientious individuals were most likely to say yes, therefore most likely to have read the consent form. Additionally, I ran a t-test. What the t-test analyzes is the difference between yes and no. These scores you see above these graphs are the mean scores. And if you find significance in the t-test, that means that there's a significant difference between those who said yes and those who said no. One, you can see here that the most people that said yes, they noticed something, were conscientious individuals. And my score here is a 0.083, which is approaching significance. Now, one, this does support my findings with the linear regression. And two, the reason why I might not have found significance within this test is because of the small sample size. But it is interesting that out of the 77, only 7 correctly identified the alteration. Some other findings, going back to separating the surveys into class level, I ran a chi-square test and found that individuals in upper level classes, 300 and 400 level, were significantly more likely to read the consent form before signing it. And then I also ran tests concerning age, sex, and grade and found that these were not indicators, no significance for whether they noticed something or did not notice something in the consent form. Okay. Some limitations with this study would obviously be the small sample size. Because it was so small, I can't absolutely say that yes, conscientious individuals are more likely to read something before signing it, but they are most likely. Right? And I think some real-life implications for this study, if an individual is not even going to read a consent form before signing it, how likely are they to read something important before signing it? A consent form is only one page, where credit card applications, the convoluted text of page after page, citing things that not everybody may understand. So I really wanted to see, these are important things to enter into, and what kind of people would be likely to enter into them blindly without reading them. Are there any questions?
Adams State College. Great stories begin here.